I've been asked a few times, particularly since I made this little sharpening tray thing, what I use to actually sharpen my tools. I happen to have a new smoothing plane that needs the initial bevel put on it, so I'll get into that now. When I first started to want to get sharp edges on my tools, I watched a whole bunch of videos from Paul Sellers where he showed off his techniques and what he uses, which happened to be 3 diamond stones and then a strop. For me, this is what I've gone with, though I'll get into the details why I don't necessarily think this is what you should get into if you're starting from scratch, and why I'll be starting to move away from it. But first, this is a 250 grit stone, a 600 grit stone, and a 1200 grit stone. This is my MDF stone, so to speak, and once we get there, I'll get into that. Use a Veritas sharpening jig. I've tried the Eclipse style and I don't think they're worth much chop, at least for me. I'm no good at hand sharpening. It's something I've heard is something that you'll get into over the years. The problem is, before that I still want a sharp edge. I want to be making stuff rather than just sharpening all the time. So while it's expensive, this is also a very good jig. It's very simple, stupid. You slide your blade in, whether it's a chisel or a plain blade. This fence here lets you set what angle you want. You take that off and you're good to go. We found that a bit of dish soap and water on the stones makes it a much better experience, and hopefully it will make them last a bit longer. So as I said, this blade has not been used before. It's sharp out of the box, but it's certainly not honed to a good edge. So for something like this, I use a 25-degree angle because I'm not a great hand tool user, so I haven't experimented much. I've not been woodworking quite as long as what people might think, so I'm sort of still learning and making it up as I go along. You can see the material's being removed and the water is helping remove that material from the top of the diamond stone, so it keeps cutting nice and fast. So I'll move up to the 600 grit. So this would be the medium, coarse medium, and this would be the... Also make sure if you're using dish soap, it's one that you can stand the smell of. The one in this is a bit lemony, which is fine. It just doesn't always do it for me, so to speak. Now this is fairly sharpened for the 1200 grit, and you can certainly strop straight from here, and that's what Paul Sellers does. I find this particular surface, it'll cut, but it'll give you a coarse cut, and it is a lot of work. And I just wasn't getting the results that I thought I should be getting from sharpening. So I'd been reading up on a few different techniques, or different sharpening mediums. You got your Scary Sharp, which is sandpaper driven, which you could replace all these stones and go up with the automotive grits up to whatever 1,000, 5,000 grit. That gets expensive. While the sandpaper is cheap per sheet, you'll go through it fairly quickly. That's where these diamond stones are a reasonable value, because they'll last many, many years in the average hobbyist workshop. The only problem is they're just not high enough grit. What I want to do is get a water stone, but they can be expensive and you have the downside of having to soak them. While more expensive again, the Sharpen ceramic stones just need a spritz of water, and that's probably where we'll go for our highest grit. In the meantime though, while I save up the money, I wanted to confirm that stopping at 1200 grit wasn't enough. So I started looking around into these diamond pastes. Now, there are a few brands, including DMT, I think they call theirs Dia Paste. Anyway, they sell their own diamond paste, and theirs are quite expensive at about 40 bucks for a pack. I got a pack of 8 or something like that. It was $8 including shipping. So this is a 1/4 micron, which is the equivalent of a whopping 100,000 grit. No, I have no need for this. That is purely a polishing grit. Instead, I use the 3.5 micron, which is about a 4,000, 5,000 grit. So just like with my diamond stones, I have my MDF stone. You can get steel plates to put this on, but this seems to work. And I can use my jig on it. So a little bit of paste comes out, not much is needed. And I suppose one of the good things of the colour is that you can see that it will go this black colour, and you can tell that you're actually removing material because the paste has changed colour. So I'll get a good close-up of what the plain blade looks like now, and then we'll go straight to the diamond grit. Might be a little bit hard to see, but you can still see all the scratches from the sharpening, and it's not a particularly reflective surface. If I put it against some text, you can probably see that there is something there, but you certainly wouldn't be able to read it. So I like to sort of work this around a bit so that it's going to coat the whole blade. And then it just gets worked back and forth. And you can see quite quickly material is being removed, the colour is being changed. Still has some work to go, but you can already see quite the mirror shine. And you can fairly clearly read the text being reflected. I find that this surface is very sharp and I can actually get quite good results. So as I said, this probably still needs a bit more of a polish, and the back probably needs a bit more work on it too. But then I would typically go to my strop, which is just a scrap piece of wood and some rue leather. Apparently the rue leather is, I don't know, abrasive enough or fine enough, I'm not sure which way it goes, that I don't actually need to put on the stropping compound.